Hi guys, welcome back to Girls in the Garden podcast. Today we are talking about Jonah and his story. Let's get going.
I'm reading Jonah 1. Wait, yes. That's how you say that.
Okay.
I'm reading Jonah, starting in Jonah 1 through 8, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and preach against it, because their evil has come up before me. Jonah got up to flee to Tarshish from the Lord's presence. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid the fare and went down into it to go to them to Tarshish from the Lord's presence. I can't get out of my head now. But the Lord threw a great wind onto the sea, and such a great storm arose on the sea that the ship threatened to break apart. The sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his God. They threw the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten the load. Meanwhile, Jonah had gone down to the lowest part of the vessel and had stretched out and fallen into a deep sleep. The captain approached him and said, "What are you doing sound asleep? Get up, call to your God. Maybe this God will consider us, and we won't perish." "Come on," the sailors said to each other, "let's cast lots, and then we'll know who is to blame for the trouble we're in." So they cast lots, and the lot singled out Jonah. When they said to him, "Tell us who is to blame for this trouble we're in." What is your business, and where are you from? What is your country, and what people are you from?
So the Ninevites were Assyrians, and they were known for torturing their prisoners and stuff to get information out of them. And then they were just overall not very good people. Nobody liked them at all. And something they were known for would be burying prisoners alive in the desert, but leaving only their head out, and sticking something through their tongue. Mm-hmm. And then the people would go crazy, they'd go mad before they even got to die. So they would die of heat exhaustion and dehydration and all kinds of stuff. So they were not very good people.
No, I can't imagine.
But when you look at the reasons why Jonah didn't want to go, it wasn't because he probably was a little scared.
Yeah.
But the main reason wasn't because of what he was afraid they'd do to him. He was afraid because he knew how great God was. He was afraid because he knew that God would save them. If God sent him, that he would the Assyrians would be saved. And he did not want those people to be saved. He hated the Assyrians, probably for a good reason, but at the same time, you don't need to hate people. Yeah. But that's why.
I bet it was hard. I mean, just knowing oh, these people do such bad things to other people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it.
It kind of reminds me though of the Pharisees and how they had all their laws, and they upheld all these laws, and they were so important to them. And then Jesus comes by and says, well, that doesn't really matter anymore. And that kind of is what it reminds me of, because he really did not like these people. He wanted them to be punished. He wanted them, we can want people to be punished as well, but he wanted it in a way that he wasn't even gonna go and tell one person. He was going to get out of there because he knew that God could save them, which is incredible, because it's we know if God sends us somewhere, it's for a purpose, it's for a plan. And it's just being able to look through the story through the eyes of he hated them, but yet God loved them. God wanted them no matter how awful they were.
And he made that clear. He threw them in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think it goes to show that our resilience to whatever God calls us to do, we know that we have a certain calling in our life, and we have certain missions we have to complete for His will. And I think that when we ignore those, we don't only end up hurting the overall purpose, but we end up hurting other people involved, because these sailors they didn't ask to be put in the middle of the storm, but they're now, their lives are at risk because Jonah ignored God's wishes.
And God has a plan, and anytime we try to say, oh no, I want my plan.
Yeah.
That's all. It don't go that way.
Don't let your feelings get in the way of God's plan.
Yeah. And we can't run from it, because up here it says, he tried to run from the Lord's presence, but obviously you can't do that.
Exactly.
God is everywhere.
Exactly.
And he's omniscient. Is it everywhere?
Omnipresent.
Yeah. Omnipresent.
Omniscient is all powerful. Sorry.
Yeah, He's everywhere. So
and
you can't run from it.
His plan is going to work out pretty much whether you like it or not. I mean, He'll put challenges in your way. In your way to help re-guide you. And that's what He did to Jonah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to read Jonah 1:9-17. It says, he answered them, I'm a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and dry land. Then the men were seized by great fear and said to him, what have you done? The men knew he was fleeing from the Lord's presence because he had told them. So they said to him, what should we do so that the sea will calm down for us? For the sea was getting worse and worse. He answered them, pick me up and throw me into the sea so that it will calm down for you. For I know that I'm to blame for this storm that is against you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they couldn't because the sea was raging against them more and more. So they called out to the Lord, please, Lord, don't let us perish because of this man's life, and don't charge us with the innocent blood. For you, Lord, have done just as you pleased. Then they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea, and the sea stopped raging. The men were seized by a great fear of the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. The Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
It really goes to show how great God is.
Yeah.
Like how he can truly do anything.
Yeah.
Like there should be no excuse for us to be afraid. Well, we're still afraid because we're human.
Yeah.
But like when we look at like the Bible and stuff, I mean, Jonah got swallowed by a fish. Like in our storybooks,
fish.
it's a whale, but like it's a fish.
Crazy. And it has to be big enough for a human body to fit in it. Like, that's crazy.
And like,
If that's not
It
good
lived.
for
It lived.
God,
And he
I
survived.
don't know what is. Like it's crazy. I know.
And you know what stuck out to me was like he knew his fault. He knew what he did wrong because he's like, it's me. And they were trying to do everything they could, but it was essentially it was his fault.
It's like my dog when he knows he did something. He's like, he smiles at you.
Yeah.
And like he like
or like,
it's so
our dog like kind of pouts. Like he'll go in
He's
his
like-
kennel and he'll be like,
that's kind of how we are.
shakes.
Like that's like we're like a dog that knows that we did something wrong and we're like, well,
About the unrolled toilet paper.
That wasn't me. That was you.
That was the cat.
valid.
it's like, we don't have a cat.
It's a twin. No, I think it's also cool to see, like, even when we make mistakes and mess up, God can still use that, because these men that like didn't recognize God as the Lord, when they saw God's power and they saw how like great he was for like doing all this, like I'm sure they didn't think he was great, but they saw his might in this and they turned to him. So I think that when we see our mistakes and we see like, oh, I should have done this instead of this, well, God still uses those things. Like we still have an impact on people even when we do make mistakes. And I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, we should make mistakes, it'll all be fine, but like nonetheless, when we do, God can still use it for his glory.
Yeah. And you can see here how
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was just saying, you can see here how like our mistakes and our sin can mess other people up, because like it didn't just affect him. No, he was sleeping in the bottom of a boat, which I find very ironic, because like Jesus slept during the storm, he slept during a storm. So that means like when life is getting hard, do we just need to sleep? like is that what it's saying? Just like when life gets hard, just sleep.
That.
Yeah.
Does that make, because like Jesus slept during the storm, he slept. So I'm like, okay, next storm, sleep. But anywho, I'm just like, his sin, it didn't just mess him up, it messed other people around him up. So that can be for us, like, just know that our mistakes do affect other people as well, not just us.
Yeah. Who are you?
I have no idea.
I just realized that that's like almost the same exact thing though. Like they were both asleep in a boat. I know. Crazy storms going on.
I know. I was like,
They
the
woke up
irony.
from the
or
boat.
irony.
They're like everybody's like, don't you know you're gonna die? And he's like, well.
He's like, well,
Next time I'm going through something hard,
I'm gonna go walk on water right now.
7-hour nap.
No, I was just thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Like almost the exact same story, except
I know.
Jesus is Jesus and Jonah is a dirty sinner like us. And he didn't make the water stop. God made the water stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to be reading Jonah 2:1-5. It says, Jonah prayed to the Lord from the belly of the fish. I called to the Lord in my distress, and he answered me. I cried out for help from deep inside, and you heard my voice. When you threw me into the depths, into the heart of the seas, the current overcame me. All your breakers and your billows swept over me. And I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look once more toward your holy temple. The water engulfed me up to the neck, and the watery depths overcame me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head.
I'm gonna read 6-10. I sank down to the very roots of the mountains. I was imprisoned by the earth. whose gates lock shut forever. By you, O Lord, my God, snatched me from the jaws of death. As my life was slipping away, I remembered the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in the holy temple. Those who worship false gods turn their backs on all God's mercies, but I will offer sacrifices to you with songs of praise, and I will fulfill my vows. For my salvation comes from the Lord alone. Then the Lord ordered the fish to spit Jonah out onto the beach. I love the part where he says, like the part about death, like you snatched me from the jaws of death, and like
It's like, literally.
it's like he like every single day he like brings us back to him every single day, and like just like that thought is like we don't have to be afraid to die. Like we do not have to be afraid to die. And like through life every single day, especially that one Friday where I swallowed a needle. Long story, but like we can just like be secure that God's got us. Like when these crazy things are going on, when we think we might not make it through the night, God's got us. He's gonna take care of us in these things, and it's so beautiful just to see. And like I love how it says the capital, all caps, Lord. That is like talking about the covenant keeping, promise making God who's always been. And like that is just such a beautiful thing that we can rely on him.
And the fact that no matter, because like he wanted Jonah to go tell the people in Nineveh, these terrible people, like about him and his glory, and just the fact that it doesn't matter how far astray we go, I mean we can always come running back to him, and he wants us like. That's what God's saying.
And you know, I like the beginning of this because like at the beginning of like all these verses we read, like Jonah wasn't, you know, he wasn't as prayerful as you would think, and he wasn't like just spending that time with the Lord, but really he was very isolated in the whale, and I think that was good for him. I think that really made his relationship with the Lord stronger because that was the time he spent praying. He spent like, he had hit rock bottom. He's like, I can't do it anymore, and that's when he reached out to God. So like when we're in seasons of isolation and we, you know, hit rock bottom, like let the rock be God, which is we've said that before. And it's just like, you know, in a season of isolation, it can be very, isolating, but God is there, and if we go to him in prayer, like he hears us. And I think that's, you know, Jonah really represents that here, because it says, you know, I cried out for help, in my version, I cried out for help from deep inside Sheol, which is actually hell, which is like a different translation for it. And it says like, you heard my voice. Like God hears us no matter where we are. I mean, if you're inside of a whale, I'm not sure how that worked for you, but he will hear you nevertheless.
Not very common.
No, not very common.
Yeah,
but who knows?
I don't know if that's happened again.
All things are possible.
You never know.
Never know.
I'm sure people have been eaten by sharks. I don't think they've lived, but
Probably not.
It's okay.
yeah.
Could you imagine that, like literally living
Inside
a whale?
And a whale? That'd be so
fish.
weird. Like imagine.
It smells so bad.
Oh, it's stink.
Or just like, I mean, it would be dark in there. You wouldn't have a little lamp that you could just.
No, pull it down. Pull the thing that hangs in the back of your throat.
Oh gosh.
Pull the little hangy thing in the back of your throat. Oh, there's a light.
I think the Ice Age movie with the guy and the grandma with the whale. Precious.
Precious.
No, when you said
that's
pull the
so
lever, I
funny.
think of
Pull the lever.
wrong lever.
Let's go with the movie reference.
But
I love that movie.
back to that, like God, like he doesn't like hate us for running away. Like when I think if my dog runs away, like when my dog got hit by the car, like I wasn't mad at him for being in the road at that moment. I wasn't angry with him. I was just praying to God that he was okay. Like I just wanted him. Like that's how he is with us. Yes, there are consequences for our actions. Jonah had to spend 3 days in a whale. Well, in a fish. Like we might not have to spend 3 days in a big fish for disobeying God, but there are consequences to every single action.
That just shows the character. Sorry.
No, you're good.
That just shows the character of God, and like he's so patient and compassionate, because he didn't have to do that, but he did, and then Jonah learned from his mistakes.
Yeah, I think a lot, like in this story especially, like we see the power and the might of God, and we see like him being demanding and directing Jonah on the right path, and like being very authoritative. But I think that we also have to remember that like God's a father. Like he's like you were talking about, your dog got hit by the car. Like he just wanted him to be okay. Like that's what a parent does. Like they want you to they want to look out for you first and foremost. And I think that yes, Jonah did not go through the best circumstances in this moment, but he disobeyed and he had to face consequences. But God protected him even though like he messed up.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. I like the story. I always.
You know, this is one of those like kid Sunday school stories I remember hearing about.
You've got to dig about it, but like I haven't went back and just read Jonah.
Remember at Connection Point when Miss Vicky, was that her, Miss Vicky?
Yeah.
She would teach on this, and I was just sitting there. I remember eating cheese balls all the time, and I would just.
But I never
But
like.
Jonah's one of those stories that we might get wrapped up in the Sunday school version of it.
Yeah, exactly,
But when you
yeah.
really, like for me, that was part of the reason why I started like digging deep in commentaries and crap. Because, like,
And like when it gets a little disturbing, the tree on this one, that's so good.
Yeah.
but like,
I've read about that a
you've
lot
got to dig deeper, or you're never gonna really.
And like you can't go based off of what you learn, because I mean, that's a kids class.
But that's why the Bible's so good, because a kid can understand it, and an adult can still study it and understand it.
We learn new things every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the living,
like the
breathing
kid
word of
version,
God.
it's like
Yeah, well, like
If
going
you
to the
think
church,
you know
we get-
everything about the Book of Jonah,
You
look up Emetita.
Yeah, say that word,
whatever it
please.
is.
Yeah.
Please, someone.
I think like because we all grew up in church, I think we get a lot of the surface level stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that if we don't let that stuff take root, then we never really grow as Christians because we don't look into it. Like we think, oh, I know the story of Moses, or I know the story of Jonah, or Noah, or whatever. You know, like we think, oh no, big ark, lots of animals, yay! But we think God's promise, like God's, you know, always there and keeping us. You read it this morning.
Yes, I read Noah's Ark this morning, and something I realized that I've never realized before in it. This is why it's a living, breathing word of God. How much God said He's sad about having to do that to His people. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going rabbit hole. But so many times.
What do you think about being sad?
And it's like, he was like, there was this thing in here, and it was like God's good creation. That he called, the same thing that He called good, He mourned it. Like, it was so cool. I'm trying to find.
Well, that's also parallel to like Jonah because, like, well, this is later on, but like Jonah did not like the people of Nineveh.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, so much he didn't
but
want to tell
God
them about.
loved them, and so. As much as Jonah hated the people of Nineveh, God was mourning the fact that the Ninevites were rebuking him basically, and like
destined to
going
hell,
against him. Yeah,
basically.
going against him, and you know, having to face this possible eternity of hell. And so, I think that kind of goes back to like God being a caring father. That
He doesn't like it, but He does it for our good.
Yeah.
because we don't control sin. Like we have it and we have to deal with it, and it's hard, but we don't control it, and it hurts God when that happens. You know.
But He gives us the option. So we
Like
figure
how much it hurted God, like to see His people turn away from Him. Like I just have never really looked at that, but like how much it says, and God was like sad. He was disappointed because His people turned away from Him. He was just like, yeah, you've given me everything I want, but I don't care. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Just like the betrayal is crazy. And he didn't enjoy killing all those people, but he was like for Jonah's family's own good, for the world, for our own good.
Yeah.
Just like Jesus didn't want to die on the cross, but He did.
But he did
For us.
Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for watching part 1 of Jonah with Girls in the Garden. I'm so glad that y'all got to listen to this episode, and I hope it blesses you. And I hope y'all have a great week. And if you're wondering why we're relocated to a different couch, it's because we got a new one and the old one's gone. It was broken. So,
no.
Kicked out.
yep. But I hope y'all are blessed by this episode. Thank you.